Hello cricket and welcome to Season 3 of the Zolt Zone. It's basically like Mad Men but with snazzier costumes. With me, Andy Zoltzman, the hotly disputed super middleweight champion of the world. In this season of the Zolt Zone I will be covering cricket, and cricket, including exclusive coverage of the rebirth of England. Now, as anyone who has ever attended a real birth will testify, whether they were there as a participant, an interested spectator, a medical official, a midwife, a mid-wicket, or a baby, which I suppose covers most people who'll be watching this, births are often quite messy. Well, very messy. Absolutely disgusting. Nature, you truly are a weirdo. And on the evidence of the birth of my two children, births also end up with at least two people crying, usually one small one, and me. So, who will end up in tears from England's rebirth? Well, Alistair Cook will be looking for some runs to ensure it is not him. A decent performance by both sides after what happened to England in Australia. They didn't just have to get back on the horse, they had to be shown pictures of what a horse looked like and start practicing getting on a bicycle that was kitted out in a pantomime horse outfit. In terms of the challenge posed by the Sri Lankan bowlers, compared to the Australian onslaught last winter, it was almost a different sport, but still some fine batting performances by England. Sri Lanka's hero yet again, the timelessly magnificent Kumar Sangakkara, trying to get Sangakkara out on a good batting pitch. It's like trying to beat Michelangelo in a who can paint most willies on the ceiling competition. You are going to have to do something pretty special. And what an ending we had to what had been a patchy match with some good cricket and some less good cricket played by both teams. At the end of it, Jimmy Anderson rolled back the years, or at least rolled back 1 year with a supreme display, and it all came down to Stuart Broad's last over. First ball, Herath gloved a bouncer down the leg side, but his hand was off the bat at the moment of contact. But he marched off anyway. Perhaps he thought, my hand was on the bat, that's out. Perhaps he thought, I don't know the laws of the game on this one, I better nip back really quickly to the pavilion to try and find a copy in the MCC library and gen up on it before I decide whether or not to walk. Perhaps he thought, a wicket now is good for cricket as a whole. It's taken a buffeting recently. Cricket needs this ending. Or perhaps he thought that eBay auction on that commemorative Charles Colville figurine is not going to bid on itself. But whatever the reason, when Herath reached the dressing room to be told that technically he should have been not out, it must have been like hearing an oink from inside a pork pie. Disappointing and surprising. Then Nuwan Pradeep was nearly out 3 times in 5 balls, but was actually out no times in 5 balls. That was the crucial difference, despite being given out LBW on that penultimate ball. What on earth was umpire Paul Rifle thinking? You may be thinking to yourself, well, in fact, I have the official transcript of Rifle's internal monologue. It's just been leaked from my ICC source. The ICC now monitoring the internal monologues of all players and officials. That's part of the anti-corruption drive, so that if, for example, a player bowls a no ball whilst thinking of a Ferrari, or hits a long hop straight to mid-wicket whilst musing about wearing a designer jacket in a New York penthouse, suspicions are rightly aroused. And here is what Rifle was thinking on that historic penultimate ball. How's that, you say? Well, there was clearly a massive inside edge, but Sri Lanka have reviews in hand. I'm Australian, the bowling team is England. Let's have a bit of a laugh. Out! Look at the looks on their little faces. What a super umpiring prank. Come on, Aussie. Come on. So that probably explains that more than curious decision. On now to Headingley. England have not failed to win their early summer series since 2006, when Sri Lanka were also the visitors. The big difference then, they had Murali, who did not merely tie England in knots in the final test at Trent Bridge, he wound them into a life-size macrame statue of himself. 8 for 70. Tidy bowler, very much, for me, the Sri Lankan Peter Such. Elsewhere in the cricketverse, New Zealand thrashed West Indies in the first test. As I record, West Indies are attempting to counter-thrash New Zealand in the second test, buoyed by the long-overdue return of Jerome Taylor. When he went through England like a samurai sword through a cantaloupe melon in Jamaica in early 2009, taking 5 for 11, as Strauss's men dissolved like a box of sugar lumps in a volcano, you would not have thought to yourself, I confidently predict that that very impressive 24-year-old fast bowler entering the peak of his career is going to take 6 more test wickets at an average of 74 over the next 5.5 years. But that is exactly what Taylor has in fact done. Very good to have him back and on form in the test arena. India and Bangladesh combined to smash the record for fewest overs taken to bowl out both teams in an ODI. India humiliated in just 25.3 overs. Bangladesh affronted that their visitors should steal their batting ineptitude in their own national stadium. Planted the flag back on the summit of Mount Collapse, all out in 106 balls, altogether 43.1 overs of batting uselessness, clobbering the previous ODI record of 65.4 overs for both teams to be bowled out. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you, that was Zimbabwe versus Kenya in Harare in March 2006. Thanks be to Stats Guru. And that is all from the Zolt Zone this week. I will be back next week. Until then, that is Stumps. Goodbye.
Polite inquiries. George Dobell, Jarrod Kimber, Kia Oval. Is Alistair Cook the worst English captain in the history of mankind?